Hey, what's up? This is Gavin from Gavin's Guitar Tips. Today we're going to analyze, break down, look at this solo from Archspire, the Mimic Well, Tobi's part. We're going to talk about the theory, the technique, all that good stuff, and why I think this is a great song to start out with if you haven't learned any Archspire yet. Here we go. This is what it sounds like dry before we talk about it a bit, just so we can hear it by itself. So this song is from Archspire's Relentless Mutation, came out in 2017, and that was a super important album for me. That was kind of the year that I was really getting into death metal pretty intensely. Before that, I was listening to a lot of non-metal band music. That's the simple way to put it. And this was kind of the year that got me back into it. And I remember hearing this album at the time and just being so blown away. It's still, I think, my favorite Archspire album. And recently I've been challenging myself to learn a guitar solo every day. It can be from any style, but keep learning something new every day. So today, albeit much earlier in the day, I picked this solo from this song. And what I found in learning it is I think it's actually quite an approachable solo. I know for sure there are much harder solos from Archspire, and I also think it's quite easy to memorize. You might just have a little challenge with some of the alternate picking. I think that's kind of the hardest part of it. So the key of the song is D harmonic minor. What that means is we're starting from a D note, and we're playing a minor scale, but we're sharpening that seventh note, which gives us this cool kind of classical, added tension, definitely metal-y vibe. The main areas in play for the solo is this first octave here, from our D on the E string, and then our second octave on the D, 12th fret of the D string. And they're kind of connected by that seventh note. So if you play through the first bit, and then add that seventh note, you just go one fret forward to reach that octave, and then we have the same shape again. The main idea that starts the solo is really just moving through a minor triad and then adding in that harmonic minor seventh, added seventh, right? We go up, da, 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 1, 3, 5 octave. Then we hit that major seventh, which we don't usually expect with the minor scale, which is that cool sound of this scale. And then we come back down from that major seventh, perfect fifth, minor third, back to that root note. It continues to stay in that same area and really just play with that idea, right, of using that minor triad with that added major seventh in there, and then also throwing in that ninth, or you could think of it like the 2 from the scale. The interesting bit here in the slow first half of the solo is when we finally get to this. I don't know what the exact term for this is, but this is a very common pattern that again has a kind of neoclassical sound, and basically all it is we're using the notes from that scale, from that second octave. Instead of descending it, normally what we do is we sort of go from 5th note to the 6th note, then 4th note to the 5th note, 3rd to the 2nd, 2nd to the 3rd, 1st to the 2nd. It just has this continuing counting motion where we go one step down in the scale and then play the next note. One step down in the scale, play the next note. One step down, play the next note. Something that's interesting about this descending pattern is it actually skips one of the notes in the sequence. We do this little pair from the 5th note, 5 and 6, from the 4th note, 4 and 5 from the 3rd note, etc. Second note, 1st note, 7th note. And then normally in the sequence, you'd expect next the 6th having its own pair, but we skip it. We go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, and then again 5, 4, 3, 2. And that kind of works nicely because we can just repeat the pattern in the same octave. If you might be practicing something like this as an exercise, you could always just go through it, following the scale. And then if we look at the last phrase of the solo, which is this fast string skipping tapping bit, like this. We're starting just from that same D spot where we were doing all of our harmonic minor scales. And again, we're starting with a minor triad. This time, instead of picked, it's tapped. So we have 1, minor third, perfect fifth. And then if we look at the next bit, we tab to, it's just a bit from our diminished arpeggio. And that's really what the rest of this is. If you're not sure exactly what diminished arpeggio stuff is, basically, because harmonic minor raises that one note in the scale, it now allows us to infinitely sequence minor thirds consecutively. So that's what you're seeing there when you're seeing this pattern. I don't usually play them like that. I usually do So yeah, that whole tapping bit is literally just the minor triad at the beginning, and then all this other stuff is just drawing from that big diminished arpeggio, which you can find in all kinds of places. So when I learned this solo, I was curious, does Tobi, the guy who wrote the solo and actually plays it, does he play it in neck pickup or bridge pickup position? Because I remember when I first saw an Archspire playthrough video, there was a lot of quick pickup switches, I think, and that was really amazing to me because at that time I'd never switched to pickup at all. So the idea of like fluently doing like a sweep and then switching, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I like to be as accurate as I can when I learn something. So I checked it out. There's a clip of Tobi from Hellfest, and sure enough, he starts on bridge pickup when he's doing the slower stuff at the beginning, right? And then here, usually we would play 1, 2, 3, 4, all 4 notes picked. That's officially what happens. But he went pick, pick, pick. And while this note is sliding down, he did the switch. So that's what I did in my version, is that. The other thing I tried to do to be as Tobi as possible in the way I played this is that I shifted from, when I originally learned this, I played the first half of the solo, the slower part, with alternate picking. That's just natural to me to sort of alternate pick things. And when I watched Tobi play it, he used almost completely downstrokes for that first slow bit of the solo. And at first it felt so weird to me, but I just thought, hey, let's do this. Let's play like Tobi. So I did all downstrokes during that first slow bit. So the solo I found was pretty straightforward to memorize. The hardest bit was definitely that fast alternate picking run. Part of the reason it was so tricky for me is it really had a lot of my weaknesses when it comes to alternate picking. So it's descending. I prefer ascending lines. It's using outside picking, which I don't prefer. I prefer inside string changes. And what was the last thing? Oh, it goes into like very low strings, which I also don't really like. I like my alternate picking is most comfortable in the highest strings. Something about being able to rest my hand on strings is really nice, but if I get all the way down to these low strings, I don't have much to rest my hand on anymore. So that feels a little weird for me. So if I try to sort of work through this pattern with just default alternate picking, it was just quite hard. I was having to focus a lot. And so what I thought finally was like, wait, instead of starting with a downstroke like you kind of normally do, because every single change was a outside pick change going to a lower string, which is like my absolute worst combo. And then I thought, well, why don't I just start the whole thing on a upstroke? So this is the first time I've actually ever done this in like a real application where I'm doing a big 16th note run and all my accents are up, 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 up. Well, here's the difference between doing that sort of pattern, outside picking, so starting with a downstroke. Here, a little sloppy. Even if I nail it, it's quite uncomfortable for me right now, versus if I start with an upstroke, which is that inside change. That one, I'm having trouble playing. That one is just much more comfortable for me. So that's the way I played it. That's the way I dealt with one of the issues. Most of the other problems I dealt with in learning a solo was that I learned this from the official tab book. So in a way, this is entirely my fault that I learned the whole solo. I listened to it once in the song and said, okay, let's learn that. And then I just learned it completely from the tab book. I didn't reference the song at all until I'd learned the solo exactly how the tab told me to play it. And I'd played it for 2 hours or something, which was totally a mistake for a couple reasons. One is in that fast run, it doesn't indicate any palm mutes according to the tab here. There's no palm mutes indicated. We're definitely, I don't know where to put the book. When I listened back to the song, to my ear, it sounded like the end of this first fast line is not totally open. It sounds like this part is open, unmuted, and then by the end here, by these strings, it sounds like these are definitely muted. And for example, let's listen to the song here. Fast run coming. Right? The end of that run is totally super tight, palm mute sort of sound. Maybe I'm not even going tight enough in my rendition I did of it. The next thing I had problems with that I think was not tabbed correctly, in my opinion, is this fast tapping bit where it was actually written in the tab as 4 notes, like the 16th notes for one beat, and then quintuplets for the next, and then 16th notes, and then quintuplets. So like 4 notes, 5 notes, 4 notes, and then 5 notes. Which at first when I learned that in the tab, I'm like, oh, this is cool. I love quintuplets. This is a weird rhythm. But when I listen back to the song, I definitely think it's 4 notes, then 6 notes, then 4 notes, then 4 notes. And I think even when I watched him play it back live, that's the sense I got. So here's the rhythm I originally learned from the tab book. Which I thought was quite cool, but in reality, this is what I think it is. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do your own research on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And that was annoying to have to rewrite in my brain, but in the end, not too bad. In terms of fundamentals, I would recommend practicing to work better with a solo like this. If you're not experienced with all of its bells and whistles, I would practice scales from harmonic minor. What I would do is I would work through them with this sort of pattern, right? And then the second bit I would focus on is some sort of string skippy tapping thing, especially with like the diminished arpeggio, I think would help. So you could always play something like this. Those sort of patterns will really help you with that. All right, that's all I got for you. I am very tired. It has been a great challenge. Let me know what song I should learn next and analyze. And best of luck to y'all. If you haven't heard Archspire, please go listen to this album. I think it's freaking fantastic. Also, one more thing. If you are looking for private lessons, hit me up on Instagram. I do teach guitar.